Call the meeting in order. First is pledge of allegiance, please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation.
Apologize for tardiness, budget meeting, finance, it's that time of year. Let's see. First is approval of the agenda. We've had this agenda submitted to us. It's, the changes or corrections to that.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about on the consent agenda, item number 4. I think that should be talked about.
Okay, discussion on that.
Are you asking to pull it or?
Yeah, I'd like that approved.
Hold totally, and then have a discussion during,
Discussion later.
okay. All right, so pull that. And that leaves 4 others.
In the action items.
And for the action item. Anything else? So we'll pull number 4 and have discussion. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion
Make a motion to approve the agenda
with the adjustment.
with the adjustment of taking out action item number or consent agenda number 4.
There a second? Is that a second?
Yes.
For the discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Approve previous minutes. We have board meeting from September 12th. Is any additions or corrections to that?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. We had a work group of September 19th. Any additions or corrections to that?
Motion to approve.
Bob?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
No second.
Further discussion?
Excuse me, commissioners. Could I just excuse you for a moment? Could anyone listening please mute their microphones?
Holly, can you please also help me keep track of the list of attendees on the screen?
Sure, I would be happy to.
Thank you. We got most everybody muting up on the screen there. Okay, we have a 9:15 appointment, so we'll go that on time. At this point, we'll have some public comment. This is the point where people have the opportunity to speak. If you do want to speak to the group, come up to the front here, identify yourself, name and address, and we'll have for public comment.
Hi, I'm Amber Miller. This is my other half, Steve Getzinger. Our address is 324 South 3rd Street, La Crescent, Minnesota. You guys might remember approving us to become managers at Wildcat Campground, but that almost didn't happen, did it? By a show of hands, when you all ran for commissioner, how many of you ran against someone? Everybody, thank you. The following are rhetorical questions. After you won by a vote, how frequently was the idea raised that the runner-up might be a better fit for the position? Was there a second interview and vote to give the runner-up another chance? Was there a doubt in the competency of the public on who they voted for? What if the other candidate screenshotted pictures of you and looked for ways to discredit you and make you look unqualified? What if you weren't given adequate time to make a huge life decision? What if that incumbent and people running the election did everything they possibly could to sabotage, mislead, confuse you and the hiring people? What if it affected you financially? What if it affected you mentally? Do those sound like honest people? Do they sound like people that should be working for and representing Houston County? That scenario might not have happened to you, but that was our experience during the hiring process for the position at the Wildcat Campground Manager. When I introduced ourselves to the interview committee this past spring, I said that we are a family that lives by our values. Anyone that knows us knows this to be exceptionally true. One of our core family values is integrity. Over the last 5 months, I have gone back and forth between if I would stand in integrity or if I would remain silent. At the end of the day, my kids are watching, and I'm either helping to create the world I want them to live in, or I'm going to stand back and watch it burn. We submitted a proposal aligning with the county's criteria and the previous manager's contract, with the main difference being a higher base salary due to our skill set and plans to update the reservation system. Following a successful interview, miscommunication and delays emerged, casting doubt on our selection as the chosen candidate. The initial post-interview meeting was intended for contract details.
That's the person that's running that campground. That's what I wanted to hear. Oh, why did it?
But we received no preparation instructions. Instead, it unexpectedly turned into a second interview by a Parks Committee member who is also an interview committee and is a commissioner. The day after, on April 4th, a board meeting took place. We chose not to attend because we were informed it solely concerned the 25-year lease between the county and the Corps. Despite not being on the agenda, one commissioner sought an update on the manager position. This meeting is worth reviewing in its entirety because with this perspective, you'll notice that the commissioner attempted 15 times to influence other commissioners about the interview committee's 4-2 vote and cast doubt on their selection, with his only explanation being there are questions. This raised concern about the fairness of the hiring process. The commissioner repeatedly mentioned the runner-up and proposed interviews with the top 2 candidates. To prepare. Other commissioners asked questions, but the county officials gave evasive answers. The discussion on the Wildcat position exposes disorganization and officials' attempts to disrupt the hiring process. Towards the end of the meeting, a fellow county employee disclosed that he had applied for the same position and raised concerns about a potential conflict of interest due to our friendship with the daughter of one of the interviewees who had voted in our favor. He felt it compromised his chances for a fair opportunity. There's a couple of things to note here. How does he know who she voted for? How does he know who applied? How is he not a conflict of interest? While I did not mention this throughout the hiring process, I think it's important to highlight Steve and I were formerly friends with this county employee, the runner-up, and ironically spent the entire summer camping together at Wildcat with our family 6 years ago. Also, for the record, there was no communication between us and the interviewee. Steve and I didn't know about the April 4th meeting until the auditor called me afterward to ask if we attended via Zoom. She said the meeting was chaotic, but the county was sure about their decision. I was confused because I didn't understand why the county had doubts. This uncertainty made me uneasy since we were investing in an LLC without clarity on our campground management status. We were asked to attend a last-minute meeting about the contract negotiations. Due to prior commitments, I had to attend alone. I informed the Parks Committee that our legal counsel was working on the LLC. The county introduced significant contract changes, including shifting financial responsibility and proposing a 50-50 concession split. This surprised me since our proposal assumed the previous manager kept 100% of the concessions and concession revenue was unknown. I reluctantly accepted these changes under pressure from the committee member, assuming there would be further negotiations before presenting the final contract to the board. It is suspected that these changes were introduced to get us to walk away from the position. Afterward, I emailed After reviewing the previous week's minutes, I emailed the county acknowledging the confusion and hoping they had the necessary information to make a competent decision. On April 11th, during the board meeting, the agenda item for approving the 2023 Wildcat Campground position was missing our name and there was no contract. Some commissioners questioned the selected candidate and the vote. The board voted on hiring Wildcat manager, which did not pass. The meeting then turned into a back and forth as other commissioners were unsure about the situation and puzzled by the missing contract. A few key points to highlight. The employee tasked with drafting the contract had all the necessary information. The Parks Committee had already spent hours working on the contract the previous week. The final contract the county later sent was nearly identical to the previous manager's contract. The county had established a timeline for completion, which was not followed. On April 17th, I emailed to inquire about the contract status and timeline. Despite our substantial investment, uncertainty persisted about the county's hiring decision. During the April 18th board meeting, a commissioner mentioned the contract would be ready soon, but two others expressed confusion stemming from the previous week's vote and asked if there was new information post-candidate selection. On April 19th, I received an email confirming an agenda request for contract approval for the following week, assuring a prompt delivery of the contract in the morning. After waiting 14 days, we finally received the first contract on April 20th. Reviewing it made me physically unwell because it did not align with our proposal. To address concerns and prepare for the county's approval meeting on April 25th, I worked late into the night, making necessary changes to clarify language and financial discrepancy. The county ignored my revisions and stated they would proceed with their contract, making changes later. Their email's phrase, "move forward with no further delay," stood out to me, considering the county had contributed to the delays in the process. In my response that afternoon, I mentioned our initial application was based on the former manager's contract, where the county covered bathroom supplies and the manager retained 100% of concessions. My changes aim to benefit both parties and align with our financial considerations. I also proposed returning to the old contract for simplicity, but expressed our inability to move forward with the county's current contract. On April 24th, the auditor asked me what they needed to do to make sure the contract would go through the next day. I mentioned I had already made revisions. I expressed concerns about the rush process, emphasizing significant changes from the previous manager's approach. By then, we had invested around $15,000 despite our uncertain management status at Wildcat, which was concerning given the ongoing process. What worried us more was the missing finalized contract on the eve of approval. On Monday night, the auditor called to reassure me that we would use the Tuesday, April 25th. Finally, the day came, but we were told the HR director handling the contract was sick and couldn't attend. There was no finalized contract, so they used a printed copy of my revised version during the meeting. Given these circumstances, I assumed the revised document would be the contract's basis rather than immediate renegotiations at that meeting. The county attorney went over the contract and gave the county three options: accept the counteroffer as is, counteroffer, look at the runner-up. He avoids using the word negotiate, but suggests discussing the county counteroffer. If we agree, the changes will be put in the contract for review by the board and us, and hopefully reaching an agreement. Mentioning the other runner-up during contract approval was interesting, especially considering the significant time invested in the contract remained incomplete. As you are aware, the contract and hiring of Fireside Management for the Wildcat Campground Manager was approved. I would recommend revisiting the footage of your expressions during those votes to see if anyone stands out. I had expected relief leaving the courtroom, but instead, persistent red flags left me far from it. The following week, when we gathered to sign the completed contract, just before signing, I turned to the auditor and said, "You know that scene in The Little Mermaid where Ariel signs her voice away?" I said, "I feel like that. But my life is not a Disney movie, and I do have a voice." It is only after the contract was signed that I was able to connect the dots and uncover the truth. I took a few months to distance myself and reflect on how to respond. Ultimately, I realized that this isn't about me. It's about Wildcat, Houston County, and this is about America. Upon a comprehensive review of the Code of Ethics for county employees, it becomes evident that significant breaches of ethical standards have been observed among all three officials. Per the county website, the proper operation of democratic government requires that public officials be independent, impartial, and responsible to the people, that government decisions and policy be made in proper channels of the government structure, that public office or public employment not be used for personal gain, and that the public have confidence in the integrity of its government. The provisions and purpose of this code and such rules and regulations as may be established are hereby declared to be in the best interest of Houston County. The ethical county employee and public official should not improperly influence or attempt to influence other officials to act in his or her own benefit. Public officials and employees are to serve all persons fairly and equitably without regard to their personal or financial benefit. The credibility of Houston County government hinges on the proper discharge of duties in the public interest. Public officials and employees must assure that the independence of their judgment and actions without any consideration for personal gain is preserved. If you want to know why America's in the state that it's in, this is why. People are waking up and we're over it. I have nothing to gain or lose from this. I did not want to do this, but this was a calling bigger than me. This was a calling for truth, and there's too much at stake. I have no expectations that this will result in anyone facing consequences, given the many issues already brushed aside. However, I implore you to thoroughly investigate this matter because it is my belief that this is not an isolated incident, but rather a pattern of manipulation throughout different areas in the county. Have public officials and employees consistently breach their code of ethics by trying to influence and persuade the board to hire the runner-up? If so, what measures will be taken for accountability? What steps will the county implement to ensure that any potential conflicts of interest arising from individuals in authoritative roles are mitigated and to guarantee a fair and impartial investigation? I have submitted a data request for 6 county officials' emails. What measures will the county attorney take to ensure that he is not a conflict of interest, considering he is a person of interest? Ethics form the foundation of our democracy, and upholding them is paramount. This country was built on checks and balances. Why has one woman been given so much power, and why does everyone fear her? We cannot evolve unless we expose the dark parts of ourselves, and the government is full of dark parts. As you come to get to know me, you'll find that I'm someone that looks for the lessons in hard times, and I can find gratitude in just about any situation, this one included. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that I'll never ignore those red flags again or my inner knowing, which is why I'm here today. You each will be receiving a comprehensive review detailing the many layers and the length at which 3 county officials attempted to secure the position for a county employee. If the county chooses not to address the questions I have, there will be no need for renegotiating next year because that's not how we do business, and you can put the runner-up in there like they so desperately wanted. We applied for this position in good faith, and we are incredibly proud of the changes and work we did at Wildcat this summer. We want to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to serve our community, and we trust that whatever happens from here is in the highest good.
Amber, that deserves a little response.
Okay.
But as a commissioner from District 2, I apologize for what happened to you and what we went through.
Thank you.
I too share your frustrations in our hiring processes. I have questioned those too. And the result of that, I've been investigated for a complaint as well. Turned out in an investigation, there were some things that were said that were not true, and I was clear to them. I hear your frustration, and I share it, and I thank you for being the manager of Wildcat this past summer.
Now, did you send out a letter to folks, to campers?
Or,
Well, talking about being here today and what was the final sentence is. If you have questions, please privately contact me. I don't want this to be blown up. Did you send this to all campers at Wildcat?
I sent that to the campers that I had contact with through Facebook.
Okay. I mean, there's, if you're trying to get information from folks as to what they feel about your duties down there, shouldn't you check with all campers instead of a select few of them? I mean, you opened up the can of worms here.
I believe that you opened up the can of worms.
I did. Okay.
I think there's a lot more that needs to be addressed than who I asked.
During the daytime, then we can decide, but then she wants to play when we get home.
Nothing said by me that was derogatory.
I think that the packet that I just hand you will be the opposite of that.
Well, I have my feelings and everybody up here have their feelings when the hiring process is done. May I finish my statement, ma'am? So we all have discussion. You won. We gave you the opportunity. We hope you'll come back. But at the time we had questions. Did you end up, I guess right now it's a question, did you end up getting the credit card reservation system going as promised?
I think that that discussion is for when we were to meet with the Parks Committee.
It'll be coming up next in 2 weeks. I
Yeah.
understand. But I mean,
And we'll go over that.
you brought up some things here that, and you're accusing me of things that are improper, which I can,
Accusing you of anything, it's what's on, I transcribed the public meeting. So it's what happened.
I voiced my concern. Is that fair?
Fair. And I
Thank you.
voiced mine.
We have a 9:15 appointment that
Thank you, member. You did a nice job.
we got, Mr. Parker from Wabasha County will be at the meeting to present information relating to our regional fraud prevention investigation program. Are you the lead for this, region?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cliff.
Are you the lead for this or the?
I guess I'm the lead and the full staff of it.
Oh, okay.
I can give you a little introduction here before Nate starts off. If you recall, we regularly approve a contract for a regional fraud prevention investigation program that's based in Wabasha County. Nate works for the Wabasha County Sheriff's Office and does that investigative work for fraud prevention in our region. And the last time we approved that contract, you had asked to have Nate come and just kind of give us an update on some of the things that are specific to Houston County, because this is a multi-county project. So that's why we have Nate here today.
Thanks for having me. Nate Barker, as John said, I work at the Wabasha County Sheriff's Office. I've been in law enforcement about 12 years, almost 13 years, and I've been in the position of fraud prevention investigator for just over 5 years. Little background of the fraud prevention program is a grant-funded program through the Minnesota Department of Human Services. It's typically a 2-year contract, grant contract between Wabasha County and Department of Human Services. Then reaching out to the other region counties, which include Goodhue, Wabasha, Winona, and Houston County. I investigate public assistance fraud in all 4 of those counties. And I'm a kind of a one-man show. There's certain amount of funding that comes in through the grant process that only allows for one of me, which includes each county's, I guess, allotment, which is all 4 counties need to come together to essentially afford me as an investigator for the region. Specific to Houston County, my state fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30 of each year. And so June 30 of 23 wrapped up a financial year for me. Houston County investigations that I did during that previous fiscal year, I worked 16 cases and completed them in Houston County. 2 of those resulted in a disqualification for individuals from receiving SNAP benefits or cash benefits due to intentional program violations, which there's a variety of ways to get to an intentional program violation, but that essentially is misleading workers or the county to get benefits that you were not entitled to. Overpayments through those 16 investigations in Houston County resulted in $16,455 during the fiscal year. And the overpayments didn't always coincide with disqualifications, but through an investigation, I could find an overpayment of benefits for a month or two that the county then collects on. As a whole, as a region, just as comparison from Houston County to the other counties, in that same fiscal year, I worked 173 cases region-wide with 12 disqualifications and 304,000, almost 305,000 in overpayments, which results that the calculation is about 10% of my caseload is in Houston County. And roughly savings and overpayments resulting from fraud are roughly 10% as well. That's typical from year to year. Caseloads and overpayments or fraud findings are pretty typical from year to year in my experience here. 10 to 15% of my caseload is typically handled out of Houston County. Again, the grant program requires certain things of me, such as a certain amount of referrals per month, certain amount of savings and overpayments per fiscal year, and they require a 3-to-1 return or a cost benefit ratio on their grant funding to me. Last fiscal year was a $90,000 grant, and I had a cost to benefit return of approximately 7-to-1. So they didn't have any problem reissuing the grant or looking for someone else to do it. With such high numbers, it doesn't I guess show
Oh. Yeah.
show that I would
Just wanna have fun.
Thank you, Bob.
show that I'm targeting individuals or going after just to get my numbers up. I'm typically reactive in my investigations, where workers or myself will find some issues within someone's public assistance case and then investigate that. And it's not indicative of how much assistance goes out in each county. What I'm finding for fraud is a minuscule amount of the amount of actual dollars that are going out to recipients. Just some more information if you want it, I guess. My 2024, my current fiscal year was recently approved and contracted through the 4 counties on July 1. And performance-based grant dollars were raised to $119,704 per fiscal year for 2024 and 2025. And that covers my vehicle, my salary, insurance, me as an employee at Wabasha County. That's me in a nutshell and kind of what I do. I travel quite a bit, being in 4 counties. I'm on the road quite a bit, and
I guess a couple of questions. You commented you act reactive to things. Now, these are concerns that public health, human services will bring to you, and then you follow up. How do you get your referral?
correct. There's a referral process that comes through a program, that CaseWorks program that I share with all counties, including Houston, that there's a referral form that gets completed and sent directly to me.
Then you follow up doing the investigation of a concern that may be coming from on public health.
Correct. And then, at the conclusion of my investigation, whatever my findings are, get relayed back to, Human Services.
Typically, our staff will see something in a case that they go, that doesn't seem right. We don't pay them to be investigators. We have them make the referral to Nate. And Nate does his investigation, gives his findings, and typically that means there's things we need to do to make the case right, so to speak, depending on his findings.
You prepare the beginning of the case and he goes in the depth case.
Yeah, I guess I would say we identify a case where something doesn't look right.
Then he takes it.
Then he takes it, and some of them pan out and some of them don't.
I think some of that is my sources available to me as law enforcement. A lot of my training and interviewing and discovering issues, I guess, as law enforcement, kind of put me in a different realm than county workers. It's not their job. It's what I'm here for, I guess.
Yeah, from our perspective, it's a really advantageous thing. And Nate's stability in the position has also been really good. Prior to Nate, we went through several investigators, and it takes a bit to learn this work and kind of know what to look for and what the state is requiring and kind of how this 4-county collaborative works. And so we've been really pleased that Nate's been with us for 5 years and we've got a degree of stability there. I think his cost benefit ratio speaks for itself. That's something, as he mentioned, that the state looks for. So,
Do you respond to citizens' complaints or no?
Yes, there's a website through Department of Human Services that accepts, it's a tip hotline.
Yep.
And I get those forwarded to me as well as, I believe if you Google, welfare fraud investigator, Houston County, I believe my name will show up somewhere because I'll receive, direct phone calls as well. So.
Mr. Burns.
Just a curiosity. So in my notes, how much did you find last year?
In Houston County specifically, 16 cases, in overpayments was 16,455.
But there was other monies too? Or just 16,450?
That would have been what, maybe you can explain better what the overpayment process is.
I'm
What
just
it could
looking at
be
the 10%. And then you said $305,000 was the total between all the counties?
between all the counties in overpayments that were claimed on and held back. 10%, maybe I misspoke on,
percent the number of cases.
overpayments, but my caseload
10% of the cases, not 10%.
cases worked. Yeah, sorry for confusion.
Just confusing. Thank you.
I'm assuming Winona County is probably one of your bigger clients.
The city of Red Wing keeps me quite busy.
Red Wing too.
Red Wing and Winona keep me pretty busy.
And
So
that's
to
your sole duty now with the sheriff's department. You're not out Saturday night on patrol.
Nope.
To clarify too, that, Nate mentioned that there were 2 disqualifications for intentional program violations. Those are different. Those you show intent. Sometimes there's mistakes. People claim they don't really know what they needed to do, but there's still overpayments. And so if the case is determined for people to have eligibility that isn't supported by fact, then there's an overpayment due. And that comes to us, and then we work that through our finance department.
Are you able to collect?
Sometimes. If you have an overpayment, but not an intentional program violation, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Typically, you'll still be getting benefits, but your overpayment would be deducted from that.
Well, so I was going to say for future.
But if you're disqualified, you're not getting benefit anymore.
Right.
And one thing of note with disqualifications as well is it's typically for the household. It's not for the entire household. So it's typically the applicant alone or
Individual.
one individual in the household. So it's not disqualified. All benefits from being received in a household. It'd typically be for that one adult's portion or
So do you work with other county investigators for your job? Do you work with them once in a while to get some assistance? or-
statewide. I'll bounce ideas off
Okay.
with others, but kind of jurisdictionally, contractually, I'm the only one.
Only one that can, okay.
And the training with protected information and the sources that I have through Caseworks, there's extra training and responsibility with that. Yeah.
So there's others throughout the state that do this similar work, and then you can say if something's happening in Olmsted County with an individual, you can say, hey, this person, is he doing stuff over there? The same as in Goodhue County or that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a statewide association. Used to be.
I'm happy to leave cards. If you have any questions down the road, John can get you in touch with me. Otherwise, you can reach out to me directly as well. Do you have any other questions for me?
Well, it sounds like it's a deal that has been beneficial, and your expertise is helping us with all the days. So thank you for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
One last thing I'll state is, Nate mentioned that he's got a lot of numbers of cases for one guy to cover 4 counties, which is true. But if you look at the total number of public assistance cases, the ones that we suspect fraud on are really a small proportion of that. I always want to try and contextualize that because he's talking about this very small portion of cases in a 4-county region, and they're the most egregious, but they constitute a really, really small portion of the total population receiving benefits.
I would
But
agree.
I think we want to communicate that we take fraud seriously and we take complaints seriously. And Nate in Wabasha County has been a great partner, and we're grateful for that.
It's a necessity that we need to do because
Absolutely.
we need to have oversight and
Yep.
make sure the rules are followed, and
Mhm.
it's always a small group or number of people that try to work it.
The ultimate goal being keeping benefits from going to
the wrong-
ineligible people. So
right.
there's funding
For the
for
people who
people
do
that
need
need it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for doing what you do for the last 5 years. We're in fifth year.
The last week, I believe, was the start of my 6th year.
Okay.
Congratulations.
So
And,
Yeah.
I remember when it was hard we were switching, getting different ones every year, and you've been dedicated to it. So I appreciate that.
I did switch up some tactics, so burnout didn't get me, but
Yeah.
we're trying to get it figured out still.
All right.
So,
That's good. I'll take one of your.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Safe travels. Let's see, was there any other public comment? The other public comment?
I just add into having worked side by side with him, he started this investigation role at the same time.
Come on forward, so you can put you on camera.
Sure. Garrett Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office. I had the opportunity over the last 5.5 years to work hand in hand with Nate. He's been an incredible asset to our agency as well as others. So the work and case numbers that he talked about, I don't think encompasses everything that he does to us. So he's a great tool that we have used numerous times. So we're grateful for him.
Appreciate that.
Is Steve a good investigator? I keep hearing that he's a really good investigator.
Yeah, well, one of the better ones that I've worked with. So I think they're the same for him.
We don't want to move, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda, we have 4 items remaining on consent agenda. One was reassign Amy to from environmental services to deputy auditor. Clerk 2, B22 step 3, effective in October. Hire Eva Welcher as a probationary 0.5 FTE deputy auditor treasurer license department, effective 10/16. Upon completion of background, reassign Kristen Klug from case aide to probation, from case aide to a probationary 1.0 FTE eligibility worker, B24 step 1, that's on the 9th of October. And then reassign Zachary Sweatberg from the sheriff's deputy to the full-time sergeant, step C 43, step 9, effective 8th of next month. Those are the 4 items that are on the consent agenda.
So I just had a question on number 1. Why does Amy have to wait till the 9th of October to start? That's 2 weeks from now.
Yes,
I've asked the 2 department heads to work with each other on this transition. The full complete transition will be on October 9th, which is the beginning of the next pay period after this pay, because we're in the pay period right now. That ended just Saturday evening. So all of those changes will be effective the beginning of the next pay period. 2 department heads, I understand, are working together with this during this transition. She may be going down there sometimes for some training, as well as with environmental services, trying to finish up some business that's up there. And it's adequate notice to the department in which she's leaving. So we try to make it as smooth of a transition as possible.
So the end of the pay period's already been, so we're starting a new one?
Started at Sunday. The new pay period. So we're in,
So the 2 days would be a problem for,
well, she's needed down in the environmental services office for some work that needs to be completed, as well as, and we have had a practice of not making assignments or hires retroactive. So we've just been following our standard practice.
because usually, when you go from one position to another, it's usually by pay period. It's just like any government agency that's effective in the future, not in the past. How I remember it.
And there's a pay rate change that will be involved, and that's just how between the personnel office and the finance department that we have tried to do that. It makes for a smoother transition.
so when we have an in-house transition, they never start in the middle of a pay period?
We try not to, because there's different coding that the payments can be assigned to. There's a lot of different factors. We just haven't. I'm not saying that would be a total impossibility, but we don't do things retroactively after the board. This way, especially when it comes to hire and doing, we wouldn't want to make a retroactive pay change for a job that's not being done.
No, I'm not saying to make it retroactive. I'm saying after approval, she could start immediately.
Well, they are working together, and there is going to be some training involved. She won't be able to do the job full force until
So she's going to
after
be
some of
doing,
the training.
so she's going to be doing training under her old pay scale position for the new
Well,
job?
as a trainee, that is not considered unfair or inappropriate. I mean, she is not required to go down there earlier. She's asked if she could participate in some training, and we're just trying to work together.
Yeah, my only concern is that it's already been how long since we've been able to fill this position, and Polly, I'm sure could use the help.
Well, that would be a board decision, then
See as how, looks like the
that's not my
Halftime
recommendation.
halftime position isn't gonna start till the 16th.
And halftime, yes. That is correct. That person is giving notice to their employer and they want to give adequate time.
Well, just that the, you know, auditors have been short-staffed for almost 2 months, so.
Should have done their training, I know, last week, Monday or Tuesday. I'm not sure what day. He was not in the environment services. She was not the place. But she was training. I suppose if you don't start them at the beginning of the paper, you're going to end up like when we did with Chris, if she would retire and it's in the middle of the paper, because she started in the middle of the paper. Another month.
So we're at a point here of making, the pay periods, it's a switch from one area to the other. She's getting a promotion, it appears, so, and from my experience of 34 years, they wait till the opening is there, until the pay period is there for ease of transition. I guess that's.
And as I said, the two directors are working together to make the transition flow smoothly and as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Any other question on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the notation pulling the initiation of a competitive search for one full-time employee, case AB 22.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Moving on to action items, we are to consider approving Houston County hauler licenses for a Justin Bird. He's the new owner of Midwest Roll-Off. Justin Bird also is the new owner of Two Guys in a Dumpster and Caledonia Haulers. I see him getting into the dumpster business. Dennis Gavin, let's see, point there. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, Justin Bird bought Midwest Roll-Off and Two Guys in a Dumpster. Dennis Gavin is actually this is for a couple of dump trucks. He isn't getting into the dumpster business. It's that he may have some demolition, some projects like that. So he came in and filled out the license application on that. So that's basically what's going on. Is it's for those three people or three licenses.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the hauler's license for Justin Bird. Dennis Gavin, Two Guys in a Dumpster, LLC.
There a second?
I'll second.
I have just a question. The reason Mr. Gavin is getting it to haul into La Crosse landfill, apparently, is that what it's
Yeah,
about?
I mean,
Okay, reason. Having a dump truck, you usually don't need a license.
If you haul refuse.
He's got a couple of buildings that he's tearing down. And he kind of wants the option to keep doing some other stuff. So things like that. That and, I don't think he plans on getting any haul routes or anything like that. But
No, I'm just wondering why he needed to turn.
Facilitates his business.
Yep.
well, and then he would get a license at La Crosse County too.
Help him do that. That sounds good. Any other question, comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number two, Brian is coming up, I guess. Consider adopting resolution 23-31 final acceptance of the CP 2023-505 contract 333 with Sir Lines Allowed for paving markings. Cost is $185,991.50. This is a completed contract.
Yep, so this is the final closing out this contract with Sir Lines a lot. So they've been hired to do center lines, fog lines, crosswalks and stuff around the county. So original contract, $190,892.67. Work certified, $185,991.50. So ultimately striped a little bit shorter distance worth of lines than was in the original contract. So so I'd like to get this final and close the project out.
Ever satisfied with their performance?
Yes, they do a good job.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is consider adopting resolution 23-32, final acceptance of CP 2023-01. That's a contract number 056 with Bruning Rock Products for maintenance rock. The total cost was $280,476.29.
Yep, so this is our rock that was delivered out to the roadways, gravel roadways around the majority of the county this summer. So the original contract was $279,809.20. Work certified $280,476.29. So 0.24% over the original contracted amount. So they did a good job as well. So I'd like to close this project out.
Did you cover all the county gravel roads, or is it just certain?
This contract included all of the roads minus 2 of them that did not get covered. Under this contract, there's another contract that had the other 2.
Oh, okay.
And again, this just had inch,
1
inch and a
were they
half
able
on
to
most
get her
roadways on
spread 1
average.
inch?
No, that's pretty good spreader. Okay, feeling of the board.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oh, yeah. Oh, excuse me. Oh, you had a comment?
No, I have not.
Oh, well. Okay, number 4 here. Consider adopting resolution 23-33, final acceptance of the SAP 028-612-14 contract 321 with Mineral Construction for replacement of County State Aid Highway 12, the bridge replacement, I forgot the word bridge. Cost of $234,180.54.
Yeah, so this was the bridge, or it's a large culvert replacement a few miles west of Caledonia. Original contract $231,749.77 with the work certified $234,180.54. So 101.05% of the original budget. So slight increases of a couple material quantities, but overall the project turned out really good. Took a while to get the vegetation established out there with the dry weather, but everything is ready to be closed out.
The bridge is still standing?
Yeah, this is it's a new box culvert that went in, so.
It's right down by Blaine Schultz's. Yep. Move to approve.
Who? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say not, same sign. Number 5, consider resolution 23-34, final acceptance of CP 2023-06, contract 334 with Scott's Construction for bituminous seal coat. Total cost is $523,759.41.
Yep, so this had original contract amount of $507,220.22. So the work certified $523,759.41. So overall percentage is 103.26%. Fairly common for this to run over on the oil quantity. So we always try to squeeze down the oil as much as we can, while at the same time getting thick enough oil to keep that rock to stick in there. So so the overruns common on this contract. So again, they did a good job and ready to close it out.
How much overrun was it?
Percentage wise, it was just over 3%,
Okay.
103.26.
16,000.
Dollar amount is about 16,500.
And you estimated 507, was there a budgeted amount at the beginning of the year, or is that unknown?
Yep, the budget amount at the beginning of the year was 500,000. So now we did juggle some money around a little bit within the line item. Our original budget for a maintenance rock was higher than what we got, so that was under budget. This was over budget, and once we combine them all together within that line item, they came pretty close to the budget.
Feeling the board.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second it.
Discussion. None being all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry.
Thank you. Yes,
Good.
This is a chip seal.
yes.
With regard to newly paved roads, including the seal. On the newly paved roads, is it a chip seal or a liquid seal?
So it's the same we do on older roadways. So it's, you put on the oil and put on the chip on top. So we use a smaller aggregate on the new roadways. So as that roadway deteriorates, you know, the surface isn't as smooth, so we use a bigger rock. So the rock size increase on the older roadways, but it's a chip seal.
Is there a benefit from a cost point of view on the newly paved road, just doing a liquid seal, not using a fine peel?
I have looked at that. There are a few counties that are doing it on a brand new roadway where they're putting down, you don't want to use oil without having something to cover it, because then you can get slick spots. So you need something over it. There are some counties that are going, essentially it's like a fog seal, and they're applying sand. So shrinking all that rock size even smaller to a sand.
I call it slurry. Is that what's referred to?
Well, they're still doing it as similar to a chip seal, but a sand instead of a rock. Because they're trying to go for that embedment. A slurry seal, you know, it's similar, although it's all pre-mixed and stuff before it goes out there. It's a different equipment with a different process.
The cost factor for the slurry seal, the seal with sand versus the seal with the.
If we do slurry seal, would be a little bit more expensive. If we do seal with sand, we can cut down that oil probably a little bit more and stretch it out farther. So yeah, we could.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Number 6 is consider approving the addition of self-service portal to existing casebook program. The cost is $16,867. And in parentheses, $12,500 is licensing and $4,375 with support for through the next year. All costs are covered by funding through the state MA online, resulting in no change or cost to the budget. Public health.
Correct. I'll kind of introduce this, and then I'm going to have Karen kind of give us a little more detail. So I can't remember, earlier this year, we received an allocation from the state of Minnesota to help offset costs associated with the MA unwind, essentially unwinding pandemic era waivers for medical assistance. For Houston County, that amounted to about $87,000. So they spread that money across the whole state. For us, our share was $87,000. Some of the things that we talked about at the time was the potential of needing to work with the state with mitigation efforts they needed to complete to come into compliance with the feds, different communication tools and things that would help us get through this unwind more effectively. Our vendor for our EDMS program, Electronic Document Management System, is Next Chapter Technology, and the product is Caseworks. So they've been working really hard. Right now, they have their product in, I spoke with contact there last week, and she said they are now in 52 of 87 states. So they've been working with, oh, did I say 52 states?
87 states.
We only have 50, John. I mean,
no,
some people say that we got 57.
We're working on Puerto Rico and
Yeah, okay,
So,
expanding.
no, 52 counties out of 87.
Yep, there you go.
And so anyway, they work with those counties very closely. And so they've been kind of shoulder to shoulder with us trying to come up with solutions to help counties navigate this. Kind of an unprecedented, not kind of, it is totally an unprecedented challenge for counties to navigate. So this product that we're bringing to you today is a tool that they've developed right now. I think she said 14 to 15 counties will be implementing in the first wave. If we take advantage of this now, they will waive their project costs and training costs. So it's a significant savings to us. And we have a revenue stream that was intended for this type of thing. Karen can give you a little bit more information on what the product
Should only be a little bit left.
Say it,
Should only be a little bit left.
only a little bit left of.
After your explanation, she can't have much more to say.
I can tell you the heart of the product.
Okay.
So basically, we have been looking, as you know, the unwind is going on, trying to find ways to get people to get the renewals in. Long story short, this is a tool we already have a vendor for. We had been looking at tech service, different things like that, but this right now, so what it'll do, currently people send us their information in multiple ways. This is a way that we can send them a direct link. It's a secure link right from Caseworks. So I'm going to pick on Eric today. Eric is working with me and I need to get information from him. I can send him a direct link. He can take a picture, he can upload his documents and send them, right back into our Caseworks system. Right now, if Eric sends them in, they either email, fax, drop them off. It takes extra time. So this is a way it can go right into the case file. It'll help expedite us to be able to work with clients. They are looking at expanding this. Right now, we do our appointments within Caseworks as well. So we'll be able to hopefully be able to send out reminders. So, hey, Bob, you have an appointment with us tomorrow at this point in time. So just instead of looking for multiple vendors to just have different things, it really is coming at a good time. That is one of the good things about Caseworks is they have worked very closely with the counties to see what's happening, what's going on, how can they help alleviate some of the extra work. Because right now, the processes and the changes with the healthcare online are unmanageable. They're just changing so quickly. Call volumes increase. So this is just one way where if we can get information a little quicker, it's a good product. So, well, there will be a cost, but it's minimal and we do have funding right now. So
Initially, there's no cost.
we should be able to pull money from the unwind.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion is made. I'll second it. Further discussion?
So there is a cost. It's 16,800.
There is a cost.
And then, 12,500 for licensing, 43,75 for support. But that's being covered by MA1 Unwind.
Yeah, that's that $87,000 that the legislature gave to all counties, not states. And
There was 36 million that was allocated out of the last legislative session. We were allocated $87,710. And one of the available ways we can use it is for technology.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion or question?
So is this going to be something in the future, like for 25, it's going to have to be budgeted, or you think
Well, there is no,
you don't know what's going to be out there for grants?
there's not, and this doesn't, there is no deadline to spend these funds. However, they needed to be used for their intended purposes.
Right.
So, and when you look at the cost, and in the Caseworks contract, I'd have to look and see. The cost does go up each year that we have it, but we should be able to budget for that as a known expense in the future.
It would be the maintenance or support number, not the licensing number. And that we would fold into our 25 budget. If it's still something that we have some of those dollars available from that money that came for this purpose, we would potentially use that. As Karen said, there isn't a fuse on that money, but it has to be used for specifically for effort related to the MA unwind. And so once we're past that MA unwind, we hope there will be an A on the other side of that. Then it'd be a lot harder to find a use for those dollars.
So is this a yearly agreement or a 3 or 4 year agreement, or?
It'd be an annual service
So
agreement.
it's an annual agreement, so next year will you come forward or have it in the budget?
I would anticipate with, like we have with other programs, there's ongoing maintenance support that are just things that we build into our budget to keep our systems running. And I guess we would evaluate it too. Is it something that is still giving us value after?
Well, you'll see how it's working.
Right.
If it's doing what it's being advertised to do, it'd be.
We wouldn't
it's
keep
not
it if it's
doing what it's doing. You would
Exactly.
want to keep it doing it, right?
Right.
Right. Sorry.
With everything. Yep.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any further? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry.
Okay. Sorry. So I printed off the wrong agenda for you guys. It was missing that last minute item.
I saw
I
that
apologize.
halfway through.
It is on the website as having 10 action items. So I have pre-printed the correct agenda for you with that item and gave it to the press. But this is what was posted. I just accidentally printed off.
But the thing is, we approved this agenda, so it's fine. It's fine. We can just work that in my request there for
Discussion.
on, no. We can work it in with the budget.
Jail status discussion.
Yeah.
So with the new,
I mean, we already approved the old, this,
it's old,
so,
Well, I mean, it's questionable which one you approved, because the one we posted did have it on there.
Yeah,
But It's up
I
to
know.
you guys what you want to do. I'm sorry.
no, that's,
this was added after the deadline of noon Thursday.
Maybe we should do it.
It was posted correctly on the website from the start. You guys did get it via email and a second email. I just accidentally this morning printed the wrong version.
I'll make a motion that we add number 7 to the action items.
can you do that already, once we already approved the agenda?
Well, I don't know, I just thought of the wrong.
Can't do
I
that.
think so.
We approved this agenda that was in front of us, and so we gotta stick with it. That's fine. We can still have the discussion.
Discussion don't hurt. That's on
I mean,
the
I'm.
discussion item. Okay, moving on to number 7 on the approved agenda. Consider approving new 2023-2024 fee schedule that was discussed last week at work group. Carol, anything that we need to be highlighted or?
You wanna come forward here?
Yeah, come on up to the. You're gonna have a couple, 3 things here. What the red highlighted on this particular one is what some of the changes we discussed.
Right, the newest one that I put, and the only difference from when I emailed it or we discussed it at the work group session was the recorder's office had made a change to increase the fee for the correction of historical marriage record, but she found out that she can't actually change that. So that went back to $40 as opposed to the 50 to change
Because of
it
the
to.
statute, yep.
And then we also do not do the O&E reports anymore, so those are red line from the recorder's office. And those,
Your general fees, okay, I see. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
The 40-year search went from $150 plus copies to $200 plus copies. And those are the only changes from when we went through it, basically line by line from the work group session. Most of the fees would become effective today, with the exception of the recorder's office land chart fees, and in order to give the businesses the heads up, it will be effective January 1st of 2024.
Radon testing got crossed off.
Those are,
Yeah, because we get them free now, and it's just a good thing for people to do that testing and not have to pay the fee.
These are all the things that we talked about in the work group.
Yep.
Approval, move to approve the Keystone County fee schedule as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
so solid waste charges to the townships,
That wasn't changed.
that wasn't changed.
No, and it was taken out of the additional $25,000 was taken out of the proposed budget to give, the county time to discuss it with the townships.
Well, yeah, because the townships have set their levy for 24, so this would
Right.
be in addition to them, and then put them in a bind as well, so.
Right, so if the county is looking at probably doing it for 2025, the discussion should be held with the townships before March, their annual meeting, when some of them set their budget at that meeting, and
Yeah.
they don't extend it to be able to, redo it.
And I
So-
think zoning should, Environmental Services Office should be in contact with those townships and discuss that if that's what we want to do.
It'd be nice to send them a notice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of times, some of the townships, they'll have a temporary in March and do the final about this time too. So, but the best way to do it is like in January, February, make them aware that things are changing. The solid waste is gonna be changing over there eventually too. Because they're gonna cross where the stuff goes.
If we do it 24, we don't get.
Okay? Any further discussion on the fee schedule? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. Next is the proposed levy, adopting.
Are you doing that? Could that just actually be at the end? You want to did something get moved from the consent agenda to the action? I think or is there going to be a lot of discussion regarding the levy and?
The question was on number 4. And the consent agenda was removed for discussion.
Okay,
I don't
so
think
do you
that-
want to do that so they can go before you have a big discussion?
Well, we could.
Or not? I mean,
Well,
it just seemed like,
it was pulled from the consent, so.
It's pulled entirely. It is not on action.
oh, because it wasn't,
Right.
no,
That's the way I understood it. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it was moved to the,
Oh.
moved to discussion.
oh, okay, I thought it was moved to an action,
Okay.
but not.
Okay, Carol, you can, it's consider adopting resolution 23-35, proposed levy. And
All right, so there were meetings with department heads, there was reviews, there was other changes that were made. And you received a list of those other changes that were made after the meeting. We had one copy after the changes when department heads were met with, and then there was another list of changes following a review of the budget, and that's what has been used to put together the final 3 trifold sheet. We're working now on the middle one, and you can see from the original that we had looked at that the changes that were made by fund are down here. I did go through and calculate the changes to the salaries based on the changes of staffing in the auditor's office, the zoning office, the replacement there. You had approved the accredited Minnesota appraiser for Joe Olson, but there will be 3 more doing that. And it's not really an option. If they're going to do appraisal work, they are required to be accredited Minnesota assessors, and that's all going to happen within the remainder of this year. And in June of next year would be when Dylan would be eligible to do that. So I worked those in because it doesn't make sense knowing that we were going to have to be paying them to not work them in. So the difference between all of it ended up being a decrease of $6,255 to salaries. So a little bit. It ends up that in order to balance the budget, the net levy needed would be 6.861%. I'm not, if the board's intention is to set it at that, or to reflect some kind of fund balance usage.
We usually don't initiate fund balance usage until the final levy, don't we?
Typically.
Okay. So I was looking through what Bob went through for cuts here. And also I see Brian's notice here of what some of the things he doesn't agree with. So, I mean, maybe you guys have more to share at your finance committee this morning. I don't know.
He doesn't agree. That's it.
Kind of the rest of the story.
Yeah.
I told him that, going down the line by line, they'll do the cuts that I recommend. You don't have to do those cuts. And it's like I told him and everybody else, that if these cuts, if it requires more money than the budget has in it, now you're gonna be taking money out of fund balance.
Which, just to give you an idea, the general fund has approximately 1.5 million in fund balance available. Road and Bridge is 3 million, and Human Services about $500,000.
Those are different numbers I got yesterday.
I went through and
Okay.
did that. It
So
was,
we,
it's higher, right?
1.5 for,
1.5 for general,
yep. And how much for highway, or
around 3.
3 million?
Mhm.
And
Human Services, $500,000.
$500,000. Okay.
If you looked at what she sent that I had put together, I did use $102,700, $102,700 of ARPA funds to offset these cuts. $45 that we haven't allocated ARPA would drop $173.
So like you got cuts here for the plow truck and a compact tractor, well, no, a loader. Of what the purchase price is gonna be, so you cut how much off of that? 20,000?
20,000 off of the one,
And another,
10,000.
that's 30,000 off of that purchase price, so then what do we, when we purchase those, what are we gonna do? Are we going to just pay them what we budgeted, or we're gonna be using the fund balance to make it?
We can negotiate the price down to what we've got budgeted, we'll have to use fund balance.
And then during our finance discussion this morning, we asked for a list of all equipment and ages, and we could start getting better ideas of what we really need. I know there's always the needs and wants. And so some of that discussion was brought up in finance to get a better idea of some of the equipment, a lot of discussion also about leasing versus purchasing. We go from one to the other, we'll have to adjust our numbers to go to a different category instead of lease if that's needed in the future. But there's discussions.
Well, there's gonna be some, correct me, I could be wrong on this thought, but if we switch from leasing to purchasing, there's gonna be an initial upfront cost for that.
You know, there will be, but we'll be eliminating lease payments. And then that's what we're looking for, is to come up with some kind of a funding mechanism so that we're not having ups and downs in the budget to possibly set up a capital equipment, like we used for the building the highway shop, to levy money into there rather than have it in the individual budgets. And then it can be, you have a schedule of all the replacements for everyone, not major equipment for the highway department, but for vehicles, the vehicle for the zoning for solid waste, the fleet vehicles, the sheriff's vehicles. Although, you know, he's typically 3 cars a year. If you have that many officers and that many miles, I mean,
If you notice on the sheriff's department, I did cut one vehicle. Took 30,000 out of vehicles and 10,000 out of it to the squad outfit.
So they're not gonna get one vehicle for 24?
I go back to 2.
Commissioners, can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Brian.
Currently, I think Commissioner Burns looked at the budget from the first half of the year. However, we just got in and we're receiving our 3 new vehicles within the month. So that will increase the payments. So if I they're not cutting cars, but right now I'm paying, it'll be $101,000 if I keep the current cars I have right this second on the lease payment. So by putting the budget down to 71, I'll still be over $30,000 because the current lease payment is $101,000 after these 3 cars come into play on the payments.
So you're gonna be shorted because we took that out. You're gonna be short 30,000.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. And that's not including if I buy or leasing new vehicles, because basically if I roll the old vehicle in the new vehicle, the increase for new vehicles maybe $100 or so per vehicle. But right now, if I'm making my payments next month for 12 months, it'll be $101,000.
So there again, we're gonna have to come up with that money somewhere. So see, this is the issue I have with going after the previous budget levy here at 90%. Or 8.74 is what the final levy is. And then, you know, and I commend you, Bob, for doing your work and due diligence and trying to find cuts. And you found another.
30,000 back.
Well, see, this is what I'm getting at, is that was the budget, that was the preliminary budget that was set. And now we're dejecting.
That was a preliminary budget given.
Given, I'm sorry, given. So now we're going back and taking some more without finding out, you know, what Ryan just brought to us, what the highway engineer Brian brought to us. So in my mind, I think we're looking still at the 8.74 if we were to leave it the way it was.
But through the finance committee, we were doing everything we could to minimize that levy. Some of the areas were small cuts and some were pretty good sized cuts, but every department got hit some more and some less, depending upon the size and the amount of funding. But, you know, if 6.8 sure looks a whole lot better than 8.7.
Well, I agree, but the thing is that already using fund balance to get to that 6.8. We usually don't start considering fund balance till the end of the year. For the
Using enough fund balance to get to the 6.8.
It have to be, because Brian just said he's gonna have to pay.
I just said, we could add the $30,000 back. Instead of 6.8, it'll go to 7. That's 0.21. But this is the budget that they deal with. They're not taking anything out of fund balance unless they go over those line item and can't balance at the end of next year. Then they pull it out of fund balance. We aren't taking anything out of fund balance. We're just lowering what's available in their budget. And they try and stay within that budget. That's just like I was asking with regard to the chip seal, if we could save money using the sand instead of the chips over newly paved roads. I question whether we needed to seal newly paved roads in the first place. He said studies show that they last longer to do.
Yeah, I agree with
But if
that.
we do this, I'm just asking a question, if we do the sand instead of the chips, how much does it save versus slurry seal or just a liquid seal? We aren't gonna do slurry, we're gonna do liquid, but we could save something on the chips versus the sand, if we did it that way. And still maintain the friction equivalency as far as the traffic is.
They're the
I'm
finance.
just not in favor of going to 8 or 9%.
Well, I'm not either, and that's where we're in a situation we discussed. We've been discussing the jail situation. We had our workshop discussion last week. We had numbers to look at. And, you know, you're looking at the jail budget here of proposed budget of 1.74 million versus 23 budget of 1.56 million, which is $200,000 more, roughly. Brian worked up some numbers with Carol and come up with a $355,000 savings if we were to close the jail and house our one inmate somewhere else. You know, and we're going by 6 inmates is what we were figuring on for average, 6 inmates for the year. Now, I get you guys', I get everybody's concern about you built the jail and now you're gonna not use it. I get that. It doesn't, that don't make sense. But does it make sense to spend the money, try to keep it open for 6 inmates a year? And that would be something that we need to consider. I'm not saying we need to do it today, but we need to consider the savings. And it's a hard decision. I mean, and that's what we're supposed to do. This is our job, to oversee the budgets and to make decisions on behalf of the taxpayers. And what we're doing here, going back and pulling stuff off and finding out later that we're still, you know, like what Brian brought up about gas and oil, general supplies. He's going to need that. So that's going to be automatically going to he's going to be over on his budget. Here, we
See,
can,
automatically, because you just know he's gonna be.
well,
What he said is automatically gospel, that's how much gas and oil we're gonna need. Instead of being a little conservative on what you do with your crews and what you do with your truck. To cut back on your need of gas and.
well, he justified it by the projects we got coming up here. We got a big paving project. You know, maybe we should look at contracting our gas and oil. Other counties do that, but we don't do that. We buy as we need it. We don't contract. Maybe we could find some savings there. I've suggested that over the years, but it hasn't come to fruition. We decided just to keep buying as we need it.
We have storage. If you buy a 7 with a 2.7.
Well, you wouldn't need the storage. It'd be a contract purchase. So, you know, I can, from my own farming operation, I can contract fuel for next spring if I want to, you know, and there's a contracted price out there, a futures price out there. I wish I would have done it for this fall. Diesel prices have gone up a lot. But, you know, sooner or later, we're gonna have to make a decision on this Winona County Jail contract coming due. And now we're going to be just housing our own. And we're, you know, the last 4 years, we've been averaging around 6 inmates a year. Well, a daily rate of 6 inmates, right?
And that's been less than the last 6 months.
In the last 6 months, we're down to 1. You know,
Well,
it was 2
Not
the
down to
other.
one, but
Well, we are today, we're 1. Monday, we were 3, whatever, that changes. Daily. But,
My intent was to keep the jail open next year. And get ourselves down between 7 and 6% increase. My concern is that we close the jail, we go to Winona. Assuming it's Winona. And the pendulum swings and all of a sudden there's more prisoners. And once their jail is closed, it's gonna be hard to get it back open. The cost to Winona could go up, their room might not be assisted.
I don't think it would be that hard to get reopened because majority of our jailers, dispatchers that we have now are gonna be kept for dispatching. They can be converted back to jailer dispatch if we need to do that.
I believe it was 2.5, wasn't it, do?
Yes.
Positions.
We had our meet and confer yesterday with the unions and I believe it was 2.5, wasn't it, Tess? Yep. Yep.
I believe so.
Yep.
Well, that's my only concern.
And
And you
here's
see the trouble we have hiring right now, so.
And there's another benefit, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but I've heard this from other people that work in law enforcement, that it's easier to hire a dispatcher than it is to hire a jailer dispatcher, because some people don't want to have to deal with the inmate situation. It's easier to just deal with your dispatching.
When you had your meeting with the jail committee and whatnot.
No, it was with union.
Oh, sorry. The meals issue. Ryan is looking at a company that provides frozen meals. Which would be a substantial cut in cost compared to the current contract. If they're acceptable to DOC and if they're, you know, meet all the nutrition requirements and what have you.
Well,
So that, I mean, that could be a savings.
there could be enough savings, but I doubt it'll be 200,000 worth.
Oh, hell no.
because-
No, no, not even close. Just concerned with closing the jail.
So one of the concerns that I have in looking at that is, and it was brought up before, are we passing that tax burden on to the other tax-paying communities, our cities and whatnot? Because they will be the ones that'll be transporting, the way it sounds, after it's negotiated out, there's some unknown there. But they'll be the ones that'll be short an officer in their community where they only have it. They'll be the ones, you know, providing that transport. So you do have, you know, a tax burden there that's coming out of the same pot. I like the comment that was made that we had at our work session, if there was a public hearing that was done to build the jail, whether controversy one way or the other, maybe there should be a public hearing.
it wasn't a public hearing, there were meetings in the various
There was public
communities,
meetings.
which I would say that would be the thing you should do.
I like that idea that was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unknown.
When the officer or deputy has to leave the county for a prolonged period of time, to process just a DWI, it's not as easy as it is just going up and dropping them off. You got an hour or two there or whatever. The other thing is follow-up investigation. Again, now the person may have to leave the county or the city to do follow-up work. And if you gotta go to Preston or Winona to do that, now again, we're shorting, as Commissioner Schultz commented, that, you know, the cities will be affected by the loss of their officer for a period of time and that overtime or whatever else is gonna be involved. This gets to be a tough call.
So right now, when an officer pulls, let's say somebody from the Crescent, city of La Crescent pulls, has to make an arrest. That officer has to take time out to bring them to Caledonia, to process it, right? What difference is it if he brings them to Caledonia or he takes them to Winona?
Time.
It's the same.
Mileage is
Mileage is
the same, but time is different because up there you're competing with the city of Winona processing their DWI at the same time. It's not just a one individual spot. You got several people coming through that jail. And there's been times when I had to wait in line for two in front of me. On a good night or bad night for them.
Well, there's something else to take into consideration. Starting in 24, we're gonna start another round of negotiations for the new 3-year contract for the unions.
Yep.
That this 1.7 million is going to go up probably considerably after that, those, I don't know what's gonna come from proposals here, but I have a feeling it's gonna be quite a bit. Given what's going on with the unions around the country, they're asking, they want a bigger share.
And with our meetings with Brian, yesterday, it was Monday, he said that there's an option that we can maybe have a holding cell. So we don't have to run these people off there during the middle of the night, we can bring them to the holding cell and then the next day, some driver can take them after the process. He said that would be an option. And as far as to reopen the jail, he said there wouldn't be hardly any problems. It's a newer jail, so it shouldn't take a. And then, like he said, it's only be shut down for 1 year. Prisoners, and we get a different judge or something like that, and all of a sudden we need it. He said it wouldn't take more than a month over.
Well, also in our
You
meeting,
gotta hire people. That's the key.
in our meeting for yesterday with the union rep asked that question, do you see a change in our numbers? Given if you had a change in your county attorney or your judges or anything, if that this is going to turn around and all of a sudden become, because there's some counties that prosecute minor felonies, but there's some counties that don't. And they're seeing this in spots all over the state, and given what our inmates have been, I don't see a trend changing here. I see it going the other way. You see it with the state, what they want to do. They don't want to put people in jail more. They want to do rehabilitation. So I don't see the numbers of our inmates, jail population climbing. I see it keep going down because they want to get away from putting people in prison, put it in jail. They want rehabilitation. They want the increased funding for probation. Brian brought up the fact even now for warrants, arrest warrants, all they have to do is find the person and make them sign a waiver, sign a piece of paper saying they promised to come to court instead of arresting them. And, all that is policy driven from the state, the policy makers.
They dictate what the court's doing here to.
Yep.
Well, I think we should maybe have a public hearing now.
I'd be okay with having a public meeting to have it for discussion and see what the public thinks. I'd be fine with that.
What would it hurt?
It wouldn't hurt anything.
Well, I think we need to continue with the budget process and discussion here with it still in. It takes time, and I would say at least 6 months into the new year to see where we're at. It's a big change from Winona's guests being down here and not having their people here. We need to see what's going on. We're looking at numbers, and I guess people have more time than I looked at the daily schedule of who's who there. I don't care who's in there, just get them off the street is what I look at. But now let's get back to the area.
The street. They're on the street doing. We only have one. So they're on the street. And like I said, we've gone,
Vendors.
we've gone from 1.5 million for 23 to 1.74 million. And I give credit to Dean Ott and Brian coming up with numbers to try to get that lower, even with all the savings they've found. We're still 200,000 over from last year. And, you know, inflation has a lot to do with everything, but, I don't see the trajectory changing here, and I think we seriously need to consider what are we going to do? And, you know, if we took that 355,000 savings off of the 1.148 million that we're over, that would get us down to 793,000 versus the 901,000 that we're looking at. So that would get us to the 6%. It's the way they work before all these adjustments here. But, you know, that's just my 2 cents.
My case, my 2 cents was that I'd like to another year just to see. If we have a public hearing, it'd be interesting to see what people got to say. I find it interesting that Houston County is closing its jail. Fillmore is adding on. Winona built a new one. You look up north and they're adding jail, they're adding justice centers all over the state.
And that goes because of what, like the union rep said, there's county attorneys that are prosecuting these lower level felonies. And there's some that are not.
Yeah.
And given our population, you know, come on, you know. Thank God in Houston County, we don't have the activity that we do.
Well,
As some counties like Dakota or Neal, whatever. Well, and Fillmore's, you know, we can go back, we can't change time, but we can go back when all this was built. Yeah, I remember when there was a controversial thing that that the new jail and justice center was built. What should have been done and considered is having a regional jail, regional center for people to come bring their prisoners to that center. And it didn't happen. And it's a shame because now here we are. You know, and you know, I'm not blaming anybody, but you know that each county and the sheriff's department, they like to have their own jail, their own thing to deal with. Really, that wasn't as much forward thinking as we should have had. We should have had a regional center for Winona, Fillmore, Houston, but we didn't.
Okay. So we're kind of getting away from the levy part here now, and this discussion is part of levy. I understand that, but you know, as Commissioner Burns said, I like to see it stay to the point where we can get a better feeling in 6 months from now than we have right now, with it changing from 15, 16 folks per day to 1 or 2 or 5 or whatever the number is. A sudden change like that, we need to get some better figures. I shouldn't say better, but
we've got all the figures. We've got Brian and Dean come up with all the figures.
And with or without the folks. Without the folks, it's down to 2 people, right? Daily?
We got 1 right now, daily was 6, wasn't it, the average?
Well, the situation is, even if we have 1 prisoner, if we have 6 or 10, we still have to have 2 jailers running that jail because of our design. It was brought up yesterday that if we kept our old jail running, we would have got by with just 1. I mean, what happened to the efficiency of building the new jail? It didn't happen. So,
State said we had to.
and you know, and I've tried to tell, you know, we're going off again, but you gotta push back at what the DOC and the state tells you, because the numbers they put out didn't come to fruition and it was overblown.
Okay. Back to the levy. We have some figures here that we have done some cuts or proposals. As Mr. Burns said, cut it as best we could. There might even be some extra cuts, but these are basically a budget, for lack of a better word, is a guideline, gives us an idea what they should spend, and if they overspend it, it has to come from reserves. But I don't like to have the 8% thing. In light of what's going on with the local jurisdictions, I did not get a chance to see what the president did last night, but other than Mr. Burns.
This is a budget that is not permanent. It's a temporary, not preliminary budget,
Proposed.
proposed budget. So it'd be my opinion that, okay, we had Brian's $30,000 back in for the squad car that we've got no matter what. That's 2% at the $30,000. So instead of 6.8, we go to 7 and do the proposed budget at 7%. And then make it, or proposed levy 7%, and make a decision at the end of the year if we're going to close the jail, have a public hearing like it said, decide if we're going to close the jail. The cost to the other cities, and talking to some of the other police departments, is probably about $50,000 overall for the local communities, for the travel time and the booking time and then coming back. The one that pays the most because it's handy for them to be here. If we could have a holding cell here, I don't know what that means for staffing. It'd be nice if they could bring somebody here before they got to run to a little bit. We can close it all together and just have a dispatch and, or let's talk to Fillmore County, maybe they'll take over our dispatch. And other counties that are combining their dispatches so that you're saving even that. Close it down. In my opinion, that we set it at 7%. We can't go over, so we go on.
Okay. Other discussion?
Because right now, we're bringing the 7%, and that's with the jail being open, correct?
That's with the jail being. If we decide to close the jail, then we can do like you said, Eric, and add back all those line item cuts and put everything back to what people want, not necessarily need, but what they want, and still be at the 5 to 6%.
Okay.
Right.
What, anything, Carol, to add to all this? Can you help us with it?
I'm,
You kind of take.
She doesn't have any savings.
Yeah.
numbers and yeah, it is the case where cuts were made, and if they end up, we've never been really specifically line item for budget compliance, but bottom line department. And we, most of them come in with some excess at the end of the year. So it's fair to say that we most likely wouldn't use fund balance for all of the cuts that were made. We would for some, I'm sure.
We also gonna have if we don't take the 107,000 ARPA monies that I anticipated using, we don't use that, we're $275,000 in ARPA funds available and $100,000 in the $250,000 bonds that we got from the state. So there's $375,000 available. ARPA has to be used, at least dedicated next year and spent by November 26th. So it is something that we have available and we should be using rather than losing.
Right. I mean, we certainly don't want to lose any of that money.
No.
And it's all federal funding. So we definitely want to do that.
Well,
And in looking at our equipment replacement and getting rotations in and maybe not using the leases. Yeah, maybe that's a way to get that started so we can get into a better cycle than what we have been with our vehicles.
You know, we gotta get some kind of rotation there and replace vehicles. We have money.
Yeah, like I said, in our finance meeting, I know of 2 vehicles that were on our schedule to be replaced, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, it'll probably go for another year and it'll probably go for another. And then you get to the point where you're losing your resale value, you're losing this. So would it have been better to do them as they were kind of on the schedule? So I think it's something we definitely want to take a look at. Make sure that we
All of that
are
said,
running efficiently.
in this discussion as it has gone, I'll make a motion to the proposed levy for 2024, 7%.
The net levy at 7%. And in terms of the budget, what you'd be looking at is adding back that $30,000. Okay.
Motion is made. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it from further discussion, if any. So is there any further discussion on setting the proposed levy at 7%, which is a not to exceed number?
So then we could have a hearing on the jail, see how the public feels in the meantime, and give us maybe 6-8 months to figure out if Ron's gonna be able to bring any people in here to keep the jail open. He's working on something. He told us yesterday that he's trying to get people to come.
We'll have the public hearing. We have to decide by December 28th, December what?
The last regular meeting of the month.
That makes the maximum 7%.
Max is 7%.
7%'s the maximum.
If we close the jail and add things back, we're on to 6 or 5, whatever.
And we can reduce it.
If we have the public hearing and the public wants to close the jail,
I think we need.
It'll actually have to be. Is the 26th holiday yet? Because of the whole,
Run and grab the schedule.
it's probably on there. It might be actually where we would have to, if the 26th is a holiday based on the whole Christmas Eve, Christmas Day thing, that always kind of confuses me.
I think we have a meeting the 26th,
We do have,
but I'm not positive.
because if we don't, we'll have to say that we're going to have one on the 19th.
Right. Well, we also got to set a T&T meeting too.
Right. So, oh yeah, you didn't
What
vote.
are numbers?
Well,
Gonna set up a public hearing for the.
well, we haven't
It's
got to
not-
that.
But yeah, we're not at that one.
So
Anyway, further discussion on setting the levy.
My main concern is having it at 7%. As you know, this will be on the T&T notices. This will be the estimated amount of money that people are going to pay. And that concerns me because, the cities have increased their budgets as well. If we're going to increase our ask as well, I'm concerned about the people on fixed income that want to stay in their homes. I mean, me as a farmer, I'll find a way to make a cut to make the extra cost, make a difference or whatever, if there is one. I don't know, but we'll see what it looks like when we get there. But 7% is the highest one we've ever done, and it's not going to reflect well.
There was a proposed where we actually were at 8%.
When was that?
Well, it was before
20
this
years
room
ago.
was done. It was down in the basement.
But then we also gotta consider, we got tax capacities that are changing too.
Right.
Between now and when the things are finalized, so that, as we're building more homes and spreading out the expense of the things, there's an extra 20 some up there in the northeastern part of the county that are pretty good size. So tax capacity is gonna have to be considered into all this too, which is above my pay grade.
Like to the assessor, the tax capacity increase for Houston County should equate to about a 1% of the levy increase. $150,000.
Well, that was just the change in that ag that was ordered. I mean, there's additional. So
Right,
should we spread
there's,
more?
the ag values went up another 5% requirement by the Department of Rev, so. That's gonna increase, that's gonna increase. Your,
Ag properties, which lowers it from the other ones when it's spread.
right,
But, you know, we also have the increased, the new construction,
Yeah,
which,
when the statements come out with the 7% increase, if that is passed, I'm not saying the proposed 7% increase is the tax capacity taken into consideration.
yes,
So the 7% could end up at 6
Right.
or less
Mhm.
from that perspective.
Okay.
But
we don't know.
we don't know. That's a guess.
Formulas for the discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye.
Can I?
Roll call. By all means. Roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
No,
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
yes,
District 5,
Yes.
Next one is consider adopting resolution 23-36, adopting the 2024 operating budget. A lot of good discussion with.
Yeah. and it kind of goes hand in hand. You're actually going to approve the budget that produces these numbers that come here. The blue and white summary sheet that I had sent before is the basis for what we will use to put those numbers into that resolution. And the levy will also be added in. So what you'll see is the actual net of what our levy will, or our budget will be.
so it'll be 931,024.
I don't have that right in front of me.
Hmm?
I don't have the budget right in front of me.
Well, that's what the net budget, am I wrong? Oh, no, are we talking about the 14,033,000?
We're actually talking about the total budget for each of the departments.
right,
The
okay.
revenues listed separately, the expenditures listed separately, and their net is the 15,496,308. The CPA then gets allocated out and put into the funds. So that is the budget, and then we'll add the tax levy. And since you're doing 7%, it will be like pretty much a zero budget. So when I plop those numbers in, I'll do that really quickly here, and before you leave, you can see what that is going to
Okay.
look like. Yeah.
So we're not actually proving a number. We're just proving a
You're
number
approving.
what the 7%
you're approving
levy
a-
will be.
What's that?
You're gonna prove what the 7% levy will produce.
Right.
So in that
But we
case,
don't know what that is yet.
we're approving a proposed
Budget.
2024 operating budget.
So we're,
Not actual, but
we're not doing this one because there's changes made from you, right? So.
We need a.
I'll, you know, I hesitated to do a lot of printing again.
Yeah.
So I'll do that while you guys do the rest of your meeting.
Yeah, 'cause I got a
And then
couple,
you
three of them here.
Put that
But-
there.
what you're gonna change,
I'm
there
going
isn't
to
that
add,
much to change. I mean,
I'm going to add, well, I didn't print the blue and white striped ones after all of your changes because
Right.
who knows how many other changes we had. So I'm gonna add back the $30,000. Go and do those. I'll put the numbers in the budget sheet and then you can approve the budget.
Then we'll have a different number, up to date number.
Approve the proposed budget.
Right, the proposed budget.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that takes you up to, okay, very good. So that's to come back. Now we're into discussion. We moved something from the consent agenda to the discussion area. We initiate a competitive search for 1.0 FTE case aid. So Don and Tess, with some info on this request.
May I just ask for clarification on the agenda? It was our understanding this was moved from consent agenda to, we just double check, to action item for discussion. But it was,
From consent to discussion.
okay, we misunderstood then.
Okay. So, case aid was, right? Case aid B22. And
This
so
is,
it's it.
this is an opening that was generated by, as a result of a recent search for the eligibility worker opening. We had an internal candidate that was the successful candidate who has accepted the position. And it's been approved by the board. And we are looking to fill the position that is vacated by this internal advancement that we had, moving one employee from the case aid to eligibility. Nothing has changed with regards to the amount of work that is being done or any of that. We're not asking for additional staffing, but rather just to complete the complement of case aides. I understand, Karen, we have 5 case aides, I believe, and 3 of them report to Karen. And with that,
One thing I'd add is that sometimes when somebody leaves the county and they create an opening, it starts a musical chair kind of thing. And oftentimes our staff are the best qualified to fill those positions. That was the case. This kind of started with somebody leaving our child support unit, who then was filled by one of our eligibility workers, opening up that position. Then this position, which was a case aide, was our best candidate that moved into that. And so it will be replacing that position. It's not an additional FTE. It's the same number that we have had in 23 and also that we're projecting in 24. So sometimes it's hard because that stretches over weeks or months even when you know there's an opening and then we do a search and then it creates another opening. And so, but usually filling a case aid, we probably won't have an internal candidate in public health and human services fill that unless they're wanting to move down in pay grade. Typically that doesn't happen.
But to clarify, this is just a replacement of somebody.
Correct.
that promoted up.
Right.
So the one that gets promoted up, who's taking that one's position? Who we got to rehire for her again?
That's what this
That's
is.
what this is.
That's it.
So-
Still hiring more people.
No, it's not an additional person. It's our internal candidate for the opening that was created. Like I said, it started with child support. An eligibility worker moved to that child support position. This case aid moved to the eligibility worker, leaving an opening for the case aid. And it's filling that position. It isn't an additional position. It's just filling an open.
Well, you got one that moves up and now you got another one that's moving up to her spot. So there's gonna be an open spot from that lady that just moves up, correct?
Correct.
So that's the person we gotta go hire, correct? And that would be a new person, no term.
Well, I don't imagine it'll be a new person. And I'm saying it's not an additional FTE. We're not adding to our staff number. It does need to be a new person.
It will likely be, because this is more of an entry-level position into the department, it will likely be an external employee, but excuse me, a person that is a non-employed to the county. But it may not necessarily, depends upon what the competitive process she is.
And it started with the exit of a child support person. So we were down a child support worker,
Some months ago.
some months ago. And then there's this musical chair thing that is not uncommon in our department. Actually, I think it's a good thing. It provides opportunity for growth and retention with our staff. So I don't see it as a negative thing, other than the fact that it's hard to keep track of this process as it kind of snakes through our department. And I agree with Tess, it will likely be that since this is an entry-level kind of position, that will be a person who comes in from outside.
Well, I mean, your budget is over by 200 and some $1,000, and now we want to add more people.
We're not adding more people. We're replacing a person.
Replace somebody. Can't we get more efficient?
I would say in this part of our operation, two things I'll say. Whenever we have an opening, we evaluate what our needs are. I don't come here just to fill a position because there's an empty spot. We look at that. In this area right now, and I would say in my entire time here, it's about the greatest need that we've had. This is ground zero for all of this MA unwind that is occurring. We have all hands on deck and we're still rounding. We're trying everything we can to stay ahead of it. And so I would not recommend that this is an efficiency we can find at this time.
We added an eligibility worker, did we not? Right. This is for case A, what we're discussing.
Correct.
We did add an extra worker for eligibility.
We did. That was.
I'm just trying to remember when, and I'm not picking on you, John,
It was
or
April.
anybody else.
No, we brought that
When did
forward.
we ever, reduce?
We do. If you look at our budget,
I mean,
we always,
reduce or retiring, but when positions come open or become vacant, that's always an opportunity to look, like you've said that, to look at it. And I've never seen it.
we have. We had a case for a account tech in our accounting division that we didn't replace. And just going back, if you look at, say, prior to the combining of the two departments, in 2015, we had 61.36 FTEs between public health and services. Excuse me, between public health and human services. Today, we have 51.95. So we have found efficiencies through things like some of those positions were home health aides. Some of them was the change, you don't have a public health director anymore.
No, I get that. Remember those
So-
are, we got rid of the home health situation and the combining of the two, and that was the last time we did it.
But we've since, that reduction of our account tech was, I think in 2021.
With the juggling of the positions, how long has this Casey spot been empty, not being used?
Yeah, we just made the decision for that person to take the position, and your action today does it make effective 10/9. So the person that you approved to fill the eligibility worker position, thereby creating the vacancy, that vacancy officially occurs October 9.
So they're still getting the caseload done with what you have now by overlapping. You're
That
who's
part,
doing what
but
with the
they're filling.
internal switching, I guess, is kind of question.
You also have to look at the training that goes along with all of this. We're in a very unusual time with the healthcare unwind. The state as a whole is truly looking at retaining the staff that they have, because this work is unlike anything that we've done. Will we look at and have the opportunity down the road to look at reducing staffing? Maybe. We still don't know what healthcare is going to look like when we get done with the unwinding. There's major changes coming right now with CMS and what the state needs to do to come into compliance. I don't have a crystal ball. Our cases right now with what we have to do for redetermining healthcare eligibility is actually doubling the work. We are truly looking at having to have one staff person dedicated to looking at cases that come from METS to Maxis. I have staff that can do that, but then it's all of the other programs that are still out there that need to get worked, that need to have a staff person. And when you look at a training learning curve of 2 to 3 years, we're getting behind the ball. We've got a new staff that just moved to even get into healthcare training is difficult. So at this point in time, for me to reduce staff, I can't recommend that, but just knowing our call volume's increasing, if you hear anything, the number of texts and calls that clients are getting, they're one on top of another. They're extending healthcare, so for people who haven't turned in their renewals, they've added an ex parte process for our staff people. So now to not have people available to answer phones or to have people walk in, or walk-in volume is increasing as well. And this position is there at the front desk, answering the phone, greeting people. It's our first line. The work is just different. I've done this almost 23 years and we can't keep up. The changes they're coming faster than what we can. We're doing it, but I'm also looking at trying to retain my staff.
And as Karen said, this area of human services have a retention concern statewide because of
You want to do too much with not enough. We're going to have burnout and more people in this.
I want to say again, I've said it to the board before, there is no incentive for us or me to come to you and ask for staff over what we need. I pay taxes in this county too. So on a personal level, there's no incentive for me. On a professional level, I've made a commitment to you and to those before you that we will provide the best possible services to the people of Houston County and do everything we can to reduce the cost to the local property taxpayer. That's a commitment I take seriously, but being able to retain our staff and have an operational thing to put forward is also a responsibility I have. So I would echo what Karen's saying. I can't recommend a reduction in that area. Karen talks a lot about changes, and really what it is we'll attend a meeting this week and the state will be addressing things that the feds have said, hey, you've got to fix this. Your state system isn't compliant. How it got uncompliant, who knows? Many states are in that boat. So the state comes up with preliminary mitigation plans that equals lots of new work and uncharted water, and it's like, we know it's tough, suck it up. And then we come to the same meeting in a week or two and it all changes because there's new communication, and it's hard to know because we're not part of that conversation between the state feds. But this unwind of pandemic era waivers for medical assistance, the point of it was to not have people lose healthcare during a global pandemic. We achieved that, but it wasn't intended to be forever. And so now we're trying to unwind it, and it is a hot mess. And our staff are doing the best they can to navigate that. This is the place where we can least afford to have reduction.
Okay. And now, as we have removed it from the consent agenda to the discussion item, I don't know, I'm not sure if we can act on it today, but can this, if the consensus of the board is to bring it back at another meeting to go through the proper channels. I know we got more information. I think that was part of the reason for discussion. We removed it. I think maybe we should just kept put it into action. I made a mistake, but anyway, it's in the discussion item, so we don't know if we can act on it today. Feeling of the board.
Agreed. We pulled it from consent, we made it a discussion. We can't all of a sudden make it an action item, it's gonna have to be the next week's board meeting. Well,
Discussion or consensus of the board, just to bring it back again, and then we can yay or nay it then.
That's fine.
Would you like it on action or consent?
I would prefer an action item, please.
You know, I know what you guys deal with the state. I don't know how you do it. Because you keep changing on. You know, they're focusing on a problem that we need to address, then all of a sudden the next week it's something different. How can you, you know, then they wonder how they can't have, retain people. It's, you know, and this whole thing was created by legislatures that wanted to extend it for the pandemic, and now it's not going to be forever. Now we're trying to and why is it so hard to reverse it? It's just frustrating for you guys that have to do it, and for the taxpayers as well. So I understand your predicament.
I don't typically stand up for the state, but I know a lot of those people. We've worked with many of those folks for a long time. I don't think they sit up there and dream up ways to make things difficult for us. This really is a unique set of circumstances that was driven by decisions that were made during the pandemic, and they were temporary decisions. That it's as difficult to unwind that as it is. We always knew that this was going to come back and we'd have a lot of work.
It was meant to be temporary.
Right. And so we knew that, and we talked about that while we were still putting needles in people's arms for immunizations. What's been different is the complexity of unwinding it and how that continues to change. And the landscape is so fluid. So, and deadlines and everything are really, really tight. It's really, really hard on Karen and her staff in that area. So I can't overstate that.
Just to piggyback on that, the way I understand it is the deadlines are tight, yet due process requirements have to be in place. It's not like folks that were just put on for one purpose during the pandemic, that they're all alike, so they have to go through this due process for each of them. And it is a flexible yet fluid process with tight deadlines and due process requirements. And so those rules haven't changed. It's just the numbers have, and the deadlines have. Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay, I believe Carol is back with, okay.
It's not right now.
Now,
We can go to discussion or whatever. Or
okay, we
updates.
can do that for a bit. Okay, I guess this week all started out. Last week I attended La Crosse County Solid Waste meeting. Where our solid waste goes. The permitting has been, for the expansion is done, all the preparing for the future. It's going to be going kind of towards West Salem, if you're familiar with the place over there. So they're planning to enlarge it. Something that's very interesting is, of course, if you're familiar, they are doing mattress recycling now, where they take items and they break it down and do that. But they've added foam, you know, we call it styrofoam. You can't use the word styro because that's a brand name, I found out. So we use polyfoam. Anyway, that's recycling. So you take that piece of foam that you had around your TV and you do that with a whole bunch. And what they've been doing is compressing it down 80-to-1. So what takes up 80 square inches becomes 1 square inch with this here process. And some of the products they're making with our picture frames and lightweight things. So that was kind of interesting. They're trying to keep their budget level. A couple of places they went down slightly, but then they went up because they have a new contractor that just came in for, who's going to be there for 10 years, and they needed to get better equipment. So that's, otherwise it's pretty quiet over there. And then we had a finance meeting this morning. We talked mostly about that during the levy and budget time here. So just trying to get numbers squared away, get it down as best we can for our people. That's about all I have. Mr. Johnson.
We had our department head meeting yesterday and Bob and I were there. Bob Schultz. But no, I wasn't. It was brought up, we need to set a TNT notice date. Should try to set that today, discuss that. Brian talked about, Highway Brian talked about, most of the road projects were done. And they're gonna start the airport project here shortly. Sheriff Swedberg is still getting quotes for the no wake signs. Rob talked about the veterans. The LIS tour with the lacrosse was very successful. They had a lot of people, and it was a popular display, and we got had a lot of contacts with the veterans. He's still getting a lot of inquiries from veterans that have never inquired about benefits before. So he's still a busy man on that. And we got talking about IT and tech, and that got to be a lengthy discussion. So, that which I don't want to get into because it's all over the place, but it's a lot of conversation.
The good point that Andy made though on that one, if I can insert, was the phishing out there, to be just super careful on emails, and then it's real big on making sure your computers are shut down.
Yep.
That's when they hack in and
Yep.
it's late night. So
And stay and
that's where
do not do any personal things on the county computers, like Facebook,
nothing.
anything. Do not do that. So he brought up example where there's one that got ransomed. And so they had to start all over from scratch, from square one. And he does not want to do that here. So he said that it's people have been doing better and shutting their computers down, and hopefully they're attending their training sessions. So keep up the good work on the end. And if I miss something, Bob, you can bring it up.
Get every one of my notes. So. Yeah, that's it.
Well, and I haven't had a chance to read through this whole thing and the public comment, but is that something that we should be addressing as far as the hiring process and investigate if we need to do an investigation or whatever? But, for me personally, I didn't like what Amber went through in the hiring process. I didn't feel it was all that fair. But I think it's been brought to our attention and it should be addressed in some matter, some way.
What part of the hiring process?
Well, I mean, there was a vote taken to as a top candidate, and it wasn't acted on. It was actually voted down. So, and the whole contract thing and waiting for a contract, I don't know what was all going on behind the scenes there, but we've had discussions before about contract reviews and writing. I feel it's the county attorney's responsibility, and and but HR has been doing that. I think that takes away from her duties as HR. I really feel that it should be the duties of the county attorney's office to review contracts.
I think in all fairness, I took in the meetings, I was there, I think we should do an investigation.
Was there any interference done?
That day,
I don't, we don't know. Like I said, I haven't been able to look through all this either,
I
so.
mean, I'm not gonna discuss any of it unless we go in the closed session. But otherwise, I think it should be investigated, that's all.
Okay. Anything else here?
Nope.
Mr. Burns?
Oh, just remember that we have public health this afternoon.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, right?
Yep. When Teresa walked in, that reminded me of something. She always used to remind us of that.
I was gonna do that at the end here, but that's good. Okay, Mr. Burns?
Well, last week I went to the planning and zoning. The zoning meeting with regard to cannabis. And its use where it can be used. And it was a 4 o'clock meeting and there was no public hearing. But one lady came to listen, but it's the time of day that you aren't gonna get much in the way of public, so I thought that was kind of too bad.
Well, it was unfortunate because at the planning commission, there was more public here to listen to that, and it was, ended up being tabled, and it was on the wrong discussion. We went,
Now, the one that happened kind of veered off in the same discussion.
Yeah.
A couple of the members on the board veer off into the other part of it instead of specifically what, it is what it
and
is.
that should have been addressed, that, no, where this is here to talk about
We're starting the meeting.
public consumption and ordinance, not the sale of the cannabis.
Well, see, that was the whole deal, the planning commission never got any notice at that. I mean, we didn't get it in their packets, so we knew what the ordinance was, we knew nothing about the ordinance.
You talking the first time or this last time?
First time. First time.
First time.
First time.
And nobody on the planning commission had that ordinance. It's usually normal we get to have it, so we can read it.
It should be.
But it didn't happen, and I.
Anyways, I went to that meeting. I'm sure some of you guys probably looked at it online.
I'd read it because I knew what was going on. And, but the rest of the planning commission had no clue what we were talking about.
First time.
Yep, first time around.
Then I had a meeting with a Boy Scout from La Crescent that wants to do trail for Bocce Park for his Eagle Scout project. Me and him. Supposed to meet on Saturday, but I got a conflict all of a sudden, so I'm gonna see if I can make it Sunday, just to review where he wants to go with the trail. As far as other cities, I know that Caledonia is looking at a budget of 8.9 increase. I asked the Caledonia school. They're playing that close to the vest. They didn't want to, they didn't know for sure what it was going to do. So they haven't figured it out yet. As far as the closing of the jail, public hearing, I think we ought to talk about that and set it for in October. And for you guys to know, I'm available the 9th, 10th, 11th, 19th, 20th, and the 25th. I think the 9th is the earliest we can go as far as notification of a public hearing. You get enough days.
October's a bad time for the farmers.
Right.
I would much rather see it November
Okay.
or later, if possible.
Are you talking about separate of our regular meeting or a?
Separate from, I think we ought to have it separate in the evening.
Yep.
People can come in the evening a lot easier than they can come in the mornings. I think it just would behoove the public to have an opportunity to come and talk. I mean, you could start the public hearing, say at 4 o'clock, so that like sheriff's department or police department or something can come and talk. But let's continue it into the evening so that the general public can come.
Would it be conflicted if we were to do it the same time as our TNT.
I think we might have.
I think we're gonna,
One.
that'll be kind of crowded.
Well, it'd be, you know, it would be time to do it, is people would come to that and discuss the budget. That's what they do. I mean, we don't have to decide today, so.
No, that's fine.
That's
If it's
something-
November,
Big food for thought on it.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
but we do need to set the TNT today.
Well, we should try to, yes.
The other thing I was gonna mention is that the proposed budget that we've set at 7% does not include extension of veteran service officers increased
Yep.
wages, increased FTE.
Increase FTE, either an extension or veterans.
Right.
So
Stays the same as it is now.
I've already been contacted by Lisa Dirks from Extension, University of Minnesota, and she asked about it, and I said, well, it's not looking good, so I gave her a order of the possibility it might not have to come to fruition.
But just a reminder, this is
Yeah.
not in.
Right.
That's all I got. We got plenty to do.
Mr. Schultz,
Eric did a real good job on the department head meeting. Really had there. I guess in the jail and budgets and all that in attending cities and townships. I mean, everyone's budgets are really stretched right now. Cost of living just isn't keeping up with inflation, and people are seeing it everywhere, which is putting a crunch on all of the municipalities and that are out there, and government agencies. I mean, we have to look at a little bit on how we can make more revenue for tax. We just redid the comprehensive plan, but
We need to do.
the pie only gets cut so many ways.
So that's how government, you know, they. Budget. Total budget is 32,872 to local.
I think there's up to. Anything else, Robert?
Nope, just wanted
Okay,
that's a feeling.
Greg,
Yeah, we had that hearing on the cannabis and no wake zone. They were both recommended by the planning commission to come in front of the board. I don't know why we're not signing them today, but maybe there's a reason.
We have to have a public hearing too.
Do we have to have a public hearing for that
That's,
too?
that's coming up here in
next 2 weeks.
October, so Amy just sent an email here.
But I think Sam's got to take a look at both of them before we can do too much.
The cannabis one is up here,
October 24th
the cannabis,
at 9:05.
and I believe the no wait was next week.
Has that been
We
set?
gotta have a hearing on the no
It's all
wake too.
one place.
What's in gates?
You gotta have a hearing for both of them, or can you
Yep.
do one hearing and do both? You gotta have
1 year to finalize it.
It's got to be separate.
For each topic.
Okay.
So the third and you know, like,
third of October.
that'd be your next meeting.
Next meeting. Yep. Okay. All right, anything else, Greg?
We got a zoning meeting Thursday night. I don't see too many problems with that, so. I guess that's about all I got for right now. Yeah. Airport, I don't know what's going on there with Chuck and trees and stuff. I gotta go pick up the rent check. He's got the rent check for us from going in. Do that to Brian, and I guess that's about all I got.
Just as a notation, I talked to Brian with regard to if we had an agreement with the property, we could cut down trees, not a lease and not an easement, just an agreement to allow us to cut down trees. He's in the process of checking to see if FAA will fund the 90% of that cost. And the beams are all out so they can start their construction.
Very good. Okay, back to adopting the budget 23-36 resolution. What was provided to us, Carol, the expenditures that have a total of $32,872 and 401. 32, like I said, wishful thinking. Yeah, $32,872,401. Got confused when I got to that extra decimal point. Comment. Anyway, that's the total operating budget for next year as it is now.
Really, it's just big numbers, it doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah, it's,
Well, it's our budget.
I know, but I mean, all the backup pages, just a big number.
So what are we gonna do? When we do, we're gonna do the investigation or?
Well, we got this in front of us here. We gotta take an action on the budget here, right?
okay, that's right.
Already did.
Supporting documents will be following. We had the two-tone blues in front of us, and those numbers are also changing now because of the anticipation. So. Feeling of the board.
Right, I mean,
We did the levy just before this. 7%.
putting your 30 back in. So we didn't act on number 9 then.
That's what we're talking about right now.
This is with the 7%. I made the motion for 7%. I'll move to approve the resolution 23-36, adopting the proposed 2024 operating budget.
You approved the.
That's 7%. Right.
Now this is approving the preliminary budget.
It doesn't say preliminary. That's the only reason I say.
Emphasize that.
It's preliminary.
Where does it say that?
Well, it doesn't, but it is preliminary.
Mhm.
Hang on.
The resolution.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It doesn't say it on the heading.
My motion is to approve 23-36 resolution adopting the proposed 2024 operating budget.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Second? Further discussion? Again, emphasizing this is proposed. Further discussion being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Okay, just a point too, this afternoon, Mr. Burns and I will be meeting with, Representative Merchants Bank, going through the banking steps, being that we moved over to a different bank, so we may be able to report next week on discussions there.
At the 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Is there something that we should be looking to do, or did you have something in mind?
Well, you guys brought the meeting information to us.
Matt had sent it originally, go through it and then write it for
Okay.
2 months of talk to you.
Yeah.
Say that,
So we can sit in and listen to what.
Let's go.
I didn't know something specific.
Oh, no. Not on my part, I'll just, we got invited to see what's going on. I guess it's new information. Yeah, so it's no big deal, but I guess, well, let people know what's going on.
Said we are leaving the deal in Mabel at 2:30.
Yep.
Get back here at 3. I'm leaving that at before 4, so I can be in Rochester for South.
Don't speed.
Because I've been reading in the Fillmore Journal and stuff, the police reports, and they've been giving tickets for 4 miles and 5 miles over.
They got a beautiful blue unmarked up there on the freeway. Beautiful blue.
Insider here.
One's right in.
Away from the maroon, huh?
Well, that's unmarked.
No.
Well, we've up. Okay, next is, the, public comment again. We've got that open again.
They're setting the TNT date.
And saying, what would be a good day for that? Oh,
Well, I figured if it's a public health meeting, you need a little lunch. No, I just came because I never really said goodbye or thank you to the board or the county, because my last 2 meetings in December were from the hospital on Zoom. So I wanted to do that, and I picked a good meeting to be reminded of the fun of being a county commissioner.
You should have came earlier.
Oh, really?
but,
I
thank you.
love being a county commissioner. We are a service to the people of the county, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. But anyway, thank you and goodbye officially. And you'll probably see me around once in a while. But
Good to see you. man.
Thank you for 12 years.
Thank you, Teresa.
And you take care of your, got some procedure coming up, right? The big one. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Chris.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, now TNT date. What?
When did the notices come out?
So Polly, are you on, Polly?
Should be, I saw her up there.
Yes, I am. Our target
So-
to have the notices mailed is November 22nd.
Okay,
That's mailing.
That's mailing. Yep.
so we can't do it the 28th or we gotta be in December. So
When is typical truth and taxation?
you get back. That week, like on Thursday night.
or have it yeah, see, AMC is 4th, 5th, and 6th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we could either do it the 7th. I don't think we should do it on a Friday night, but
No.
Well, maybe.
Well,
We can all go to Elsie's afterwards.
or before.
So either the 7th or the 12th. Well, maybe we should make it the 12th, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's, sometimes they felt that got to be really close to the time we had adopted. Look at more things, but I guess I'm hoping that we do a lot of that, more of that in between time.
Well, we got a workshop after that. And then supposedly we might have a meeting the 26th scheduled.
Don't we have public health meeting that afternoon? For some reason, that's in my calendar here with the Fillmore County.
December?
Do we have one in December or we have one in January?
I got one in November.
It seems like it's off this year compared to what it used to be.
Used to be like every other month, right?
We can find out this afternoon.
Yeah, let's settle that, but let's get back to our TNT. Notice the 12th at 6 o'clock.
Let's try that.
12, 1800. Okay,
Yes, sir.
very good. I've been here. Okay, anything else? No other public comment, anything else for the good of the cause? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second? Whoop. Is there a second to adjourning?
He's got a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I got it. I got a motion. Who's gonna second it?
Leave that to the next meeting so we can review it first ourselves.
Good. Sounds good. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Thank you.